Hello students, welcome to my lecture on operating system. I am Shravani Kundu, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Guru Nanak Institute of Technology. Today I will discuss the system call and the structural overview of operating system. So in my last class, I discussed the different services of operating system. So in this figure, you can see that there are different services. This is the diagram where the lower portion, the services portion, has the different services like program execution, IO operation, file system, communication, resource allocation, accounting, error detection, and protection and security. Basically, operating system is just the collection of this set of services. With those set of services, the system user application can interact with the hardware. So when the user application send any request, then operating system fetch the services as per the requirement, and depending on the services, the hardware will execute the operation and we can get the output. Fine. So here you can see one important thing is that between the operating system and the user interface there is another important layer which is called the system calls. So here you can see that here this one. So this is a very this is very important layer which belongs to the this user interface and the services of operating system, the different services provided by the operating system. Now the thing is that when you write the user application, when user write any application or any program, any instruction, like if you write the syntax like printf, so as we know that whatever we will write inside the printf, that will be displayed on the display device. So basically this printf statement can complete its operation with the help of the IO services of the operating system. Fine. As the task of the printf statement is to display the string which is present over here, display that string through the IO devices, that means through the monitor screen. So you can see that printf statement needs to call these IO operation services. But the interesting thing is that this printf statement cannot call this IO operation service directly. What it needs to do? The printf statement with the help of the system call. So our operating system provides different types of system calls, and with the help of all the system calls, the printf statement can access the services, and the services then perform the operation with the help of the hardware and produce the output and send it to the user, send back it to the user application. Fine. So here you can see that the services of the operating system cannot be directly accessed by all the user application. So system call is very important part of the operating system. Clear? So now let us define what is system call. Okay. So as you know that system call is nothing but a set of services. That is, it is nothing but a small program. Fine. Or we can say that it is an interface. So as you see from the previous example that this GUI or this batch or interface, whatever is there, those can communicate with the services with the help of the system call. Okay. So what we can say over here that this system call act as the interface between the user and the services provided by the operating system. And the interesting thing is that the system call is written in the high level programming language. Okay. So mainly it is written in C and C++. And those high level the calls, the subroutines which is written in high level language, those subroutine can access the services. Clear? Now mainly there are different high level application program you can see in your operating system, and those are the different system calls. Now in Unix or Unix like operating system, you can see there are many important system calls. So you can see later that while we will create any process, so during the creation of the process, we can create the process with the help of a system call, which is called the fork. Fine. So this fork system call, this is very important. This fork system call is basically used to create a process. Okay. So while we will want to create any process, or if we want to suspend the process, we can use the wait function. Okay. And another important operating system calls you can see. So you can remember one important function while you write in C programming. In case of file programming, you can see that there is a function called fopen. So using this fopen function, you can open the file either in read mode or write mode or editable mode. So in whatever mode you wish. Now this fopen is the function. This fopen function basically invokes the system call open. So this open system calls will be invoked by the fopen function. And here if you write the name of the file is file1.txt. So this file will be opened with the help of this open system calls. And maybe your file is stored in the secondary device or in the primary device. So whatever, if it is stored in the secondary device, then this open function will fetch it from the secondary device and it will be stored with, and then you can perform your operation with the help of this file. Okay. Similarly, if you want to perform the read operation on the file, so you can remember there is a function in C which is called the fread, or there is another function fprintf. Okay. Another function fscanf. So using the fprintf function, we can print on the file. Using the fscanf function, we can take some data from the file. So there are different types of functions are there: printf, fprintf, and fscanf. Okay. So using the fprintf and fscanf function, we can perform the operation on the file, and those functions indirectly call the read write operation. Okay. So you can see that there are different system calls are available, and using all the system calls, we can call different services which operating system provides us. So before going to the detailed discussion of the system calls, first we will discuss one example. So this is a very well-known example of the system call. So here you can see the main objective of this example is that we want to open a source file, we want to read something, and then we will write it in some destination file. Clear? So how we can perform this operation with the help of the different system calls available. So those are the various set of services are there, and how the system calls helps us to execute to call all the different types of services. So we will discuss those things with the help of this example. Clear? So here you can see that to perform the writing operation on a file, what we need to do? First, we need the name of the file where we want to perform the writing operation. Okay. So what we have to do before performing the writing operation, the first step is you have to take the name of the file. Fine. So what is the first step? We have to read the name. We have to find out what is the name of the file. Okay. So this input file name we have to take in. And if you can remember that after taking the name of the file, what we have to do? We have to again take the output file where we have to. So our objective is, this is my source file, something is written, so in this file something is written over there, and we will copy all the things in this destination file. So what is my first step? My first step will be, so let us say this is the file 1.txt, and the name of the destination file is file2.txt. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to first, at the first step, we have to take the input of both the file, name of both the file. Okay, now after taking the name of the file, we have to open the file. And you can remember one thing, that if so my objective is to read data from the file and write those data in the file 2. So what is the operation I need to perform? Reading operation I need to perform on the file 1. So in the file 1 I need to perform the read operation, and in the file 2 I need to perform the write operation. So while we'll open the file 1.txt, definitely we will open the file in read-only mode. Clear? So you have to open the file 1.txt in the read-only mode. Achha. And before opening the file, one thing you have to ensure that the user will supply those file name, file 1 and file 2, file 1.txt and file 2.txt. And the operating system, before opening the file, opening the file in read-only mode, so before going all those things, the operating system checks whether these two files exist or not. Fine. So what is the operation? After taking this, all the acceptance of the input, it will check if the file exists or not. If the file does not exist, any one of them or both of them, if the file does not exist, then we have to forcefully stop the execution of the program. So we have to call the kill function. So this is a process. The copying of data from one file to another file is nothing but a process, and we need to kill it. So what is my objective is very clear. I want to copy data from file 1.txt to file 2.txt. So this is my objective. So whatever the program you will write over here, so that I can say it is a process. Okay, so this process will start its execution or complete its execution if these two files exist in the memory. So if these two files does not exist, then this process needs to be killed. Okay, so first thing we have to do, after taking the input, we have to check whether the file exists or not. If the file doesn't exist, then we have to stop the execution of the process. Otherwise, we will continue. Okay, now while we will continue, what the operation we need to perform? So firstly, we need to open the file 1 in the read-only mode, and we need to open the file 2 in the write-only mode. So while you will open the file in the read-only mode, you have to call the system call read, because you are reading the data. And while you want to write the data on the file 2, you need to call the write system call. So two system calls you need to call. One is a read, another is write. And before that, you need to kill the execution of the process. You can kill the execution of the process. Fine. By if those files doesn't exist, then we have to stop the execution of the process. So in that case, we can call the function, kill function. Now, another thing is that while we are taking the input, we will supply the input through the through our keyboards. So we need to call the IO services. So here you can, so there is some other system calls are available. Using those system calls, we can interact with the IO services. Clear? So far we have taken the input, and after taking the input, we are checking the validity of the file, and if it is not valid, we will call this system call to stop the execution of the process, and if it is valid, then we will call the read system call and write system call to perform the read operation and write operation on the file. Clear? And once the reading and writing operation is complete, Okay, so in that case, what we need to do, we need to close the file. So you can remember in C, in case of C, while we can write if close, then file descriptor. So by using the if close file descriptor, we can close the file. So this if close file descriptor, it is a function, and this function call the system call, which is called the close. Fine. So close system call will be called by this if close function, and this if close function will close the call it, and this close system call indirectly call, then this system call will call the IO services to close the file. Clear? So again, I am saying that the system call plays a very important role for calling different services present in the operating system. So whatever the functions we will write, those functions basically invoke the system call, and those in system call then invoke the different services present in the operating system, and then the services will perform the task to complete the action. Clear? So that is all about how the system calls are used to perform the different operation. That means perform the copying of data from source file to the destination file. Okay. So now, next, we will discuss the different types of system call. Okay. So as you know that whatever the operation you need to perform, we can write the function, but each function in turns call a system call, and the system call in turns call the services. Okay. So basically the thing is like that. So I will write the name of the function by using any programming language. Then function invokes the system call, and this system calls invoke the services provided of operating system. That means the services provided by the operating system, and this will work. Then the service provide the operation, return the result, and that result will be sent to the system call, and system call will send it to the function. So you can say that this system call basically act as the interface between the high level programming language and the services of operating system. System call is also the part of the operating system. Okay. So now you can see there are different types of system calls are there. The first one is the process control. So as I told you that while you want to copy the content of one file so to another file, that means what is my process? My program is copy file 1 to file 2. So this is my process. So if I want to process the content of file 1 to file 2, that means I have to write a code, I have to write a program. So once you will write the program, so that program while running is called the process. So how the process is created? The create process, there is a system call is called the create process. By using the create process system call, the process will be created, and terminate process system call will terminate it. Okay. Then and there is also end, abort. Abort is basically used if the process is not performing the legal operation, or in that case, suppose in this example, if the two files doesn't exist, or any one of them doesn't exist, so in that case it will perform the abort, or it will load the process to the memory. And there are different operations. So if I want to suspend the execution of one process, we can call the wait function. Okay. And if there is any error for the memory access, then it will call the dump memory if error. Okay. So different types of system calls are there. Using those system calls, we can perform all operation related to the process. Fine. Now, the example of the next system call is the file management. So the different operations, different system calls regarding the file management is, as you know, to perform the operation on the any file. If the file doesn't exist, then we have to create it. So basic operations are create file, delete file. We can open the file, we can close the file, we can perform all the read write operation. And you can see that while you are performing the operation using any word processor, you are changing the data from one place to another. That means you are performing the editing operation. And what you are doing, you are copy the file from one location and you paste it to some other location. That means you are repositioning it. So different types of operation, whatever task you will perform on the file or based on the file, so everything will be handled by the file management system call. Apart from that, there is another system call which is called the device management system call. So this device management system call helps you to handle the different devices. Okay, so let us say if you want to play the CD and on a particular track of the on the CD, there is a music CD. You want to play all the songs, and then you want to skip some of them and you want to play from a certain track. So in that case, what you have to do, you are just change the position. So this repositioning, those type of operation, that means how the device, input devices, how the input we have to take from that input devices, and how we can change from one position to another position. So those are the things will be handled by the device management. And while you also can note one important thing, that when we insert the USB in our system, so this USB, first the device driver present in the USB get loaded, and our system can recognize that some external input devices, some memory devices has been inserted in the system, and the device will give you the notification. So this, how the device can understand, how the OS can understand. So while you will insert the USB in your machine, then the services are running, and this service detect, the device management service detect that some devices are inserted in your machine, and it detect it, and then it will send you the notification with the help of the system call and some application software, that what are the action you need to perform. And another important thing, you can see that after performing the operation on our USB drive or pen drive, we always need to, if I want to take it out, so before taking out, we can click on it, and we can select the option that eject or safely remove. So this eject or safely remove, that these two function basically call the detached device system call. So these two function basically physically helps you to detach the USB from the system. Okay, so device management, using those device management service system calls, we can perform different types of plug and play, and we can handle all sort of devices which we will attach with our system. Now there is another important system call which is called the information maintenance. So using this information maintenance system calls, you can organize all the data of your computer. You can set the time, you can extract some data from the file. So different types of operation you can perform, you can manage the information of your system with the help of those system calls. Communication is also a very important system call. This system call is basically used to send the data from one process to another process. So suppose two processes you are running in your system, and one process, suppose performing the addition operation, and another process is performing the multiplication operation. Now the multiplication operation, the process which are performing the multiplication operation, that process needs to call, and that process is performing the multiplication with the help of the repeated addition. So in that case, that process need to call the addition process. So what will happen, that the multiplication process will call the addition process, and subsequently send the data to that process to perform the different operation. Clear? So communication is very important parameter. So there is also another example of the communication, basically the example of the client server. So suppose there is some client machine, and there is a server machine. Some data is stored inside the server, and client, in the client machine, client wants to access some data. So what the client will do, it will send a request for the data. So it will send a request by placing the information ID or some parameters. It send the request to the server. So client is a separate process, server is also a separate process. Two processes are running separately. Now while the client wants to access the data from the server process, it will send some message to the server. So this message sending will be performed with the help of this communication system call. And in turns, while this request will reach to the server will prepare the data and it will send the response to the client. So this both communication can be done with the help of the communication system. So there are different types of communication. One of the most common example of the communication is this message passing. So message passing is one of the very important communication media through which two processes can communicate by sending and receiving the message. And there is also another important another way to communicate, that is called the shared memory architecture. So in this case, what happened, there is a common memory present which is called the shared memory. So this memory is called the shared memory. Fine. And what happened, the processes which wants to communicate with each other, so those processes, suppose P1 and P2 wants to communicate with each other, so all the processes and the shared memory, they are connected with each other through some network. So what happened, if P1 needs to send some information to P2, P1 will write that data to the shared memory. So it will write the data X to the shared memory, and P2 will read it from the shared memory. So what P1 will do, it will write the data X on the shared memory, and P2 will read the same X to perform its operation. So here, these two processes are not communicating with the help of some message, they are communicating with the help of some shared memory. So shared memory is another types of system calls that helps us to establish the communication between two processes. Okay, so that is another very important types of system calls. Communication is very important system calls. Now the next system call is the protection. So as you know that operating system provides the services, security and protection. So to access those security and protection service, again some set of system calls are available. Those system calls are called the protection system call. And using those protection system call, the operating system can call that security services and perform the desired task. Okay, so that is all about the system call. Now next we will discuss a very important topic which is called the structures of operating system. Okay, so from the tradition, that means from the beginning, from the year 1950 to till now, during the evolution period of the operating system, what the structures has been followed to design it. Okay, so basically there are three structures of the operating system. One is called the simple structure operating system, second one is a layered structure operating system, and the third one is the microkernel or MAC. So all of them are very important. So first one is the simple structure operating system. So this structure is basically followed by the older version of the operating system. So in this case, in the case of the simple structure operating system, so you can assume that. So what before that, you know that what is WAS? WAS is a collection of services. And what is the services? Well, how we can implement the services? Services is nothing but a set of program. You write some set of instruction. So what is services? Services is a set of instruction which it performs. So each services has a set of instructions, and all the instructions together form a program. Right? So we can say that operating system is a collection of programs. So in case of simple structure operating system, we can assume that OS is a program. This is one program which we can say OS, and inside this program there are many functions are there. So those functions are called the services, and OS put all the functions together and create the operating system. So again, I am saying that theoretically, the operating system is nothing but the collection of services. Okay. Now, what is the services? Services is nothing but a set of tasks. Now, how we can perform this task? How we can say that this task will be performed by the services? By writing the instruction, by writing the code. So those are the different services of the operating system. Okay, so say let us say 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are the 5, 6. Those are the different services of operating system. Now, so each services has a set of instructions. So it is nothing but a program. Make it very clear, and don't think that operating system is some huge thing, some imaginary thing. Not like that. It is very simply a set of program. The program which you write by using the C programming language, using the programming language, the designer, the developer has written a set of program. So by using those set of program, we are accessing the hardware. So those set of programs are called services. So if we put all the services together in a packet, you can say it is a closed container. So in that closed container, we are putting all the services together. Then that closed container, we can say that it is the operating system. Clear? So this structure is called a simple structure. So here nothing is different. All are placed in a single bag. So that's why the structure is called very simple. And the one important disadvantage of the simple structure operating system is that here, if you need to perform the modification of one service, suppose the service 1 can invoke or sometimes calls, it can call service 2. Okay. So service 1 can send some data and it also can receive data from service 2. Now what happened? We need to change some instruction. We need to modify the service 2. Okay. We will modify service 2. So while we will modify the service 2, subsequently we have to modify service 1. Otherwise, maybe it cannot receive the service from it. So here you can see, in case of simple structure operating system, if we want to modify one service, it may be that some other services need to be modified. Not all, maybe some services need to be modified. That is one disadvantage. The second disadvantage of this simple structure operating system is that it is very difficult to identify where is the error, because there are different, we put everything together. So if any error occurs, it is really difficult to identify that whether the error is occurring from service 1, service 2, or the calling between the error is present here where service 1 is calling service 2, or the error is present somewhere else. So it is really very difficult to identify the error where it is present, for which services or for which particular instruction the error is occurring. So debugging is another important problem for the simple structure operating system. And you know that MS-DOS is the example of the simple structure operating system. Clear? Now here you can see, in case of simple, this is the structure of the simple structure operating system. So MS-DOS device driver is there, application programs are there, and this is the ROM BIOS or device driver. So what happened in case of simple structure operating system, the application program can directly interact with the device driver without the help of the operating system. Okay, so that is one major disadvantage of the simple structure operating system. So now we will discuss the next one, which is called the traditional Unix structure operating system. So it is little bit different from the simple structure operating system, modified version, but it is not the layered one. So as I discussed you, as I told you, that the operating system are of three types. One is a simple structure, second one is a layered, and third one is the microkernel. So DOS is the example of the simple structure operating system, but the traditional Unix is not the, it is not simple structure, it is not layered version. Fine. So this traditional, this is the old version, oldest version of the Unix operating system, tried to modify the simple structure operating system. So what it does, you can see that here there is a term which is called the kernel. Okay. So this kernel is contains the basic features of the operating system. And here it stores the different services of OS, and all the controller, that means all the device controller hardware part is placed below that, and between the operating system and these devices there is an interface to the hardware. So you can see there is a layered structure. So here some layering is there, but it is not fully layered, not fully distinguished. Again, all the parts of the operating system are placed inside the kernel. But here what happened, some features from the kernel has been extracted and they are placed over here. You can see the shell. So shell is an important part of the operating system in case of Unix, but it is taken out from the kernel, that is taken out from the operating system, and it is placed in the upper layer. So this is not the completely layered operating system, but it is something different where we want to follow the layered version, but we are not implemented the entire functions as per, we are not creating the layered structure as per the requirement of the operating system. So next, this layered version is further improved, and the Unix is now converted totally, implemented with the help of the fully layered approach. Now whatever the Unix operating system we use, they are totally layered approach operating system, the modern version of the Unix operating system. So here you can see this is very interesting architecture. The coremost is the hardware. Fine. Now above hardware, so this above hardware, the part is called the kernel. So this is the foremost part is the hardware, and above hardware there is a part which is called the kernel. And this kernel basically store only those system services which are required to interact with the hardware. So this kernel is not the entire operating system. This kernel is not the entire operating system, but what is the difference between operating system and kernel? Operating system store everything, all the services, all the system calls, all the functions, everything is present in it. But the kernel has only those set of services which are required to, which are very important, which are the core features which need to be loaded while we load while we start our machine. So this kernel has the core part of the operating system, and those are required, those can directly interact with the hardware. Apart from the functionalities present in the kernel, there is also many functions which is present in the operating system. They are not present over here, so they are not important. So what I am saying, as you know that how our machine starts. So when you switch on the machine, when you give the power to your machine, and when you press the start button, switch on button, basically the BIOS, that means the ROM BIOS is, from the ROM BIOS there is a program, BIOS program, which runs. This BIOS program loads the main part of the operating system, which is called the kernel. So this BIOS load the kernel to the memory. Clear? So this is our memory. You can say this is our primary memory or RAM. So there is a part which is called the ROM BIOS. So when we press our start button on our machine, this BIOS invokes this kernel part and it's stored in the memory. So kernel is stored over here in this particular area. And this kernel has the core part of the operating system, which in turns can invoke all the function of the operating system as per the requirement. One disadvantage of the simple structure operating system is that, so in case of simple structure operating system, while your machine will start, the entire OS should be loaded into the memory. But in case of layered approach operating system, the entire OS is not loaded into the memory. Only the important core part is present in the memory, and as per the requirement, the other parts will be loaded. And until and unless they will be called, those functions, those functionalities will not be loaded in the memory. Clear? So you can see in case of layered approach, there is almost layer 0 is the hardware, and in the layer 1 there is a kernel. So I am discussing the structure of the Unix operating system, and here you can see above the kernel there is some shell, some important commands are there, and some you can see that some compilers are there. The compilers like GCC, G++, so all the compilers are there. And above there is some application program like Word and all those things. So all applications programs are there above it, and the users are there, they can interact with that outermost layer. So here you can see this layer, this boundary will work as the interface. So whatever we will, why it is more advantageous, the layered architecture? The layered architecture is more advantageous is that we are not putting entire thing in a single bag. So that if I change the place of one position, that will affect the other position. So we have created different compartment in a single box. One compartment we are putting the hardware. In the next compartment we are putting only those functionalities which can directly interact with the hardware. So here we will not put those functionalities which cannot interact with the hardware, because that is not required. Fine. So this interface present over here, this interface can help the kernel to interact with the hardware. Now above this kernel there are some functions, some functionalities of the operating system which can communicate, which can perform its job with the help of the services which is present in the layer 1. Okay, so there is a shell, different internal commands are there, compilers are there, so they can perform their operation with the help of the services which is present in the layer 1. And again, the application programs can call all the system calls and services present in this layer, and using those system calls and services call the services in the layer 1, and the services of the layer 1 finally executed with the help of the hardware. So the important thing is that if you modify anything in layer 1, so that will not affect the functions or codes present in the other layers. So it will not affect the working principle or functionalities of other services present in other layers, because they are totally separated. Clear? Now, so definitely it is very easy to identify the error from which layer. So each layer is very small. You can make your layer as thin as possible. So if you make your layer thin, in that case only small set of programs or services are there, so you can easily debug from where the error is coming, because the entire thing is not present in a single bag. So you can easily debug that from which layer the error is there and what is the services present in that layer, so you can identify them. And another thing is modification, and any correction is very easy, because modification of one layer will not affect the working principle of the other layers. And if I wish, then according to my need, I can add some functionalities in the different layers. So if I need to add something, I will some services I can add it over here. So while I am adding the new services in this kernel part, it will not affect the other two layers. Fine. So in this way, the layered operating system is very much useful, considering the simple structure operating system. Okay. Now The next one is the microkernel system structure. Okay, so as I discussed that kernel is a very important part of the operating system. Kernel is not the entire operating system, but it is a core part of the operating system. Only those essential features are present inside the kernel and remaining features are present above the layer. Fine. So in the kernel, there is another important thing which is called the microkernel. So here you can see that the definition of the kernel is there. Now, kernel basically acts like a bridge between the application and the hardware. Okay. Now, what is the microkernel? Microkernel. So, as I told you that while you switch on your operating system, the BIOS load the kernel inside the in the main memory. Now, if the size of the kernel is too large, then your loading of the operating system, that means the starting of your computer system, will take more time. Try to understand. BIOS store the kernel in the memory while you will start your computer. Fine. So if the size of the kernel is too large, then the large amount of data need to be stored inside the main memory. Fine. So a large time is required to start your computer. So in case of CPU, which needs to the efficiency is not so much, we can incorporate those processor in some small unit, mainly some embedded system where the processor are not too much powerful. So in that case, for those type of processor, if the kernel is too much, then the entire system will take a long time to start its operation. So again, another modification invention has been performed on the kernel. This is called the microkernel system. So what happened in the microkernel? The developer makes the kernel small. They will fetch only some important features which are required while the operating system will start. It will not put all services which will interact with the hardware. It will put only those essential services, only that set of services which are needed while we will start the operating system. That means we make the kernel again very small. So that's why this kernel is called the microkernel. So size of the microkernel is quite small compared to the size of the kernel. So as the size of the microkernel is very small, so definitely while we'll start our operating system, only the BIOS will store only the microkernel part, and its size is very small, so our system will start very fast. Then microkernel subsequently call the other services and to store it in the memory. So in this way, we can speed up our operating system. Fine. And another important thing is that this microkernel is very much reliable and very much secure. But the disadvantage, there is one important disadvantage of the microkernel, which is called the performance overhead due to the user space. Okay, because the size of the kernel is very small. So what I want to mean that there is some, if you say that, okay, so if I make the kernels more and more small, then our operating system will become more efficient and more faster. Not like that. You have to understand the thing like that. So this is your memory. Okay. So this kernel part will be stored inside the memory while you will start your computer. So our BIOS will store the kernel part in the memory. Fine. Now, this kernel part is not sufficient to run the operating system. Once our computer is started, is ready to run, then these functionalities present in the kernel will invoke all the other functionalities which is present on the hard disk. So this is my hard disk. Okay. So other functionalities present on the hard disk. So this kernel call them and store it in the memory. Fine. So much time is required to fetch the data from the hard disk and store it in the main memory during the operation. So you can see in turns the overall speed up process will decrease during the runtime of your system. Okay, so this performance overhead will decrease due to the lots of communication, due to the lots of communication between the kernel space and the user space. I think it is clear to you. Again, still I am repeating that the disadvantage is that, so in case of just the kernel, in case of kernel, the kernel contains all the essential features of the operating system. So if I store the entire kernel in the main memory, so all the essential features are present in the main memory at a time. So we don't need to evoke, we didn't need to call them from the secondary memory again and again. Okay, but in case of microkernel, only a small subset is present over here. So to run our basic applications, we need to invoke the other services from the secondary memory and we need to store it in the main memory. So here a communication cost appears. That communication cost is not present in case of kernel. So we cannot make our kernel so small that so that our communication cost will increase. So if your communication cost increase, which in turns decrease the speed of the computer, speed of your operating system. Fine. So that is very important features for the microkernel structure. So we will make our kernel, but the thing is that we will not make the kernel so small that the overall system in future, the efficiency of the system in future will decrease. So here you can see the diagram. The lowermost to the bottommost is the hardware. Above hardware there is a kernel. So this include only the basic operation. Above the kernel, all the services is there. This is the structure of the microkernel. But in case of kernel, the most of the important services are included in this layer. Fine. And the services which is not used so much, so frequently, those services will be placed in this layer. Okay. And then above that, there is some applications layers and the users and all those things are there. Fine. So this is the microkernel system. Now, you can see that this microkernel, why this microkernel is required. So this microkernel is basically used for the many operating system, for our mobile operating system, where our processor is not so much efficient and memory is not so much high. So we can use the microkernel. So in that case, that operating system which runs for our mobile devices, they must have a small kernel. So generally Mac OS use this microkernel architecture. Fine. And apart from that, this Android operating system also use this microkernel architecture. So here you can see Android runtimes environment, so which has only the code libraries, and those code libraries are basically loaded in the memory. The size is very small, so that your system, while you will switch on your mobile, it will start very fast. Okay. Now, next, the last important thing is the virtual machine. That is very interesting concept of the operating system. Basically, this concept of the idea, the fundamental idea behind the virtual machine is to abstract the hardware of a single computer. Okay, so what are the hardwares of the single computer? The hardware is CPU, memory, hard disks, device drivers, networks. Those are the things of the hardware. So what is the objective is to hide the height of presence of hardware of a single computer to the user and create an appearance, create a visualization such that the user seems there are many hardwares are present. That means the hardware's presence in that system of multiple computers. What I am saying, This is very important features of the operating system. So basically here you can see there is a single CPU. Okay, there is a single CPU, single primary memory, single disk driver, and so and so. Now while the process will run, the process can see that only one CPU and one memory device is present, because there is a single operating system. Fine, only one operating system, and that creates a view that this operating system has a one CPU and one memory. But in case of virtual machine, it creates an idea that a multiple CPU and multiple memory is present, though the number of CPU and number of memory is single. And how it is possible? Here the hardware set has a single CPU, single memory, and all the devices present in the hardware. Fine. Now above hardware, this virtual machine manager is installed. This virtual machine manager will create multiple virtual machine interface. So here in those white portion, you can say those are the interface. Fine. So there are here three interfaces are there. So three interfaces are there. So what happened? Now for each interface there is a separate kernel. So for the first virtual machine interface there is one kernel. For the second virtual machine interface there is another kernel, and for the third virtual machine interface there is another kernel. So one kernel at a time is able to run the process, one user. But here there are multiple kernels, so each kernel will treat itself as a full-fledged operating system, full-fledged machine. So the process which runs over here, for that particular process, the view is like that this process is running on this kernel, okay, on this kernel, and it has the full set of hardware. Okay, so towards the process, the view is like that. For this particular operating system, there is a CPU and memory. Again, for the process which is running for this particular kernel, so for this particular kernel, in that case, the view is like that. For this particular process, it seems that there is a single kernel. This is the operating system, fine. And for this operating system, this entire process, entire hardware devices are available. So this entire hardware devices is only for this kernel, because the presence of multiple kernels they are not visible. That means the existing of this kernel is not known by the other kernel. So each kernel, they can decide, it seems to it that for me this entire set of hardware is present. Again, for this particular process, it is running for the kernel 3. So for this particular kernel, the appearance is like that. This is my kernel, and the entire hardware set is present for me. So you can see there is a single hardware set, but this single hardware set is used by the multiple kernel. Okay, and from each kernel, so what is a visualization? What is a view from? If you view from each kernel, from the kernel point of view, so kernel 1 can assume that I have one set of CPU, one set of memory, and all stack, register, all those things. From the view of the kernel 2, there is a one set of CPU, memory, and all those things. Towards the kernel C, there is one CPU, one memory, and all those things. Okay, so though we have only one set of hardware devices, still due to the existence of the virtual interface, the virtual machine manager creates different multiple interface, and with the presence of the multiple interface, the multiple kernel, multiple operating system can assume that we have the three set of hardware, and three processes can run on it, and the execution is very fast. And as you can know, it is not very harm to run multiple processes using a single processor, because if you observe in next classes, I show you that in most of the time the CPU is remain idle. So you can see the efficiency, that means the utilization of CPU somewhere like 10% or something like that. So 90% of the time CPU remain idle. So if I divide the execution time of the CPU among 3 processes, so it will still fast. Instead of executing one process one after another, if I divide that execution time of the CPU among 3 processes, still we can get the better throughput. Okay, so number of output, you can say that the turnover, okay, and throughput is quite better for the virtual machine. Okay, so this is all about the structure of the operating system. So I am just make a summary that in case of virtual operating, in case of our operating system, from the beginning, from the developed initial phase to the till now, the entire structure of the operating system is mainly divided into 3 categories. The first one is the simple structure operating system, where all the services, all functions are placed in a single bag, single container. And DOS is the example of the simple operating system. And next, we are trying to improve it further, and that's why the basic structure of the Unix, so the initial structure of the Unix operating system appears. Then still the architecture of the Unix is modified further, and the layered structure evolves. In the layered structure, so we divide all the functions of the operating system into several layers. We put them in different layers as per their requirement, as per their relevance. And what will happen? The functions, services present in one layer, that will not affect the presence of services in another layer. So each layers are separate, so we can perform easily addition or deletion of services in the different layers. Fine. So that is all about the layered architecture. So Unix use the layered architecture. And now, while we go for the layered architecture, the hardware, above the hardware there is a kernel part, and this kernel part contains all the main features of the operating system, basic features of the operating system. Now, if the BIOS try to load all the entire kernel in the main memory, then in that case it takes lots of time. So the time will increase. So we will go further, we will create another architecture which is called the microkernel architecture. So where we make the size of the kernel small, quite small, and where we will put only those essential services which are required to start our machine. So that we can start our machine, our operating system very fast. Okay. Now, so those are the 3 main architecture of the operating system. And Android and all those things are Android, iOS, Mac, so they use the microkernel architecture. And the last one is the virtual machine, is another important concept. They use the concept of the layered approach, and they use the concept of the kernel architecture, and based on that they create the visualization of multiple hardware, though only a single set of hardware is present. So those are the different architectural evolution of the operating system, and still it is under research. Many more architecture we are looking. So as the architecture will increase, our operating system will become more small and it will be more faster. Okay, so that is all about my today's lecture. Thank you for watching my video.